Hey, this is Senator Justin Reedy coming to you from Annapolis at the end of the fifth week of the General Assembly session. Um, Now that we are fully all the way into session, there's a lot of things happening. This was a very eventful week, like they'll all be from here on out. Uh, we had a gun day on Tuesday with hundreds of activists coming down to protest and speak against some really bad bills that only went after law-abiding citizens and their Second Amendment rights, as opposed to focusing on the criminals who are causing actual violence and crime in our communities. Hoping that we'll have some good news as some of the bills already there's been some movement to at least try to whittle them down a little bit. Obviously, we would like to defeat them, but try to keep you posted on that. But that was a big thing at the start of the week. But a big major focus this week for the Senate Republican caucus and myself was we rolled out our legislative agenda because we're really focused, Republicans in the Senate are, about solutions to the problems that face all of us in Maryland. Every day, Maryland families, small businesses, and individuals, we want to focus on solutions. Um, uh, what we tried to do was really key, very focused on some key priorities. First priority is bringing down the cost of living and tax burden for working families and for retired Marylanders. So we had two bills. One of them was actually heard this week in the Senate, lead sponsored by Senator Gallion, that I co-sponsored with him, to get rid of this terrible automatic gas tax increase. Every year, the gas tax rises in Maryland. It's adjusted for the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. So basically, with inflation, it's gone up. And as you know, inflation's been out of control. So we're trying to stop those automatic increases. Your elected officials should have to vote to raise your taxes. It shouldn't be an automatic thing. We also have legislation in to eliminate retirement taxes for every retiree in Maryland. Governor Moore made a big deal of talking about expanding the veterans retirement tax credit and or retirement tax cut, and we're for that. But we want to see every Maryland retiree be able to keep their hard-earned retirement income and stay here in Maryland. Another issue besides the cost of living and taxation is crime. Out of control. I've talked about it many times. Of course, you know I've been focused on solutions that focus on who's to blame for it, which is the violent criminals that are really ruining some parts of our state with their activity, and it's gone unchecked for too long. We have legislation in the Senate Republican caucus. We have the Violent Firearms Offender Act, which basically is repeat violent offenders, increasing minimum sentencing for repeat violent offenders who hurt people using obviously illegal firearms. It's legislation that we've passed before in the state Senate, just couldn't get it out of the House. We're reintroducing that with Senator Folden as the lead sponsor, and I'm obviously co-sponsoring it as well. We have Gun Violence Accountability Act, which would say if you're a prohibited person from carrying a firearm, but you're caught carrying it, there's going to be real penalties for that, as opposed to right now what's happening in Baltimore. People are riding around with illegal firearms, and it's a slap on the wrist. It's not being enforced properly. So we have legislation. We're actually working with Ivan Bates from the state's attorney in Baltimore City. We're supporting legislation. This is legislation he wants that will help him as well. And finally, I have my bill that would make theft of a handgun a felony. It's inconceivable to me that we have year after year in Annapolis groups that say they're against gun violence and say that they want to stop gun violence. They come down to try to every last little thing they can do to try to stop law-abiding citizens from having a firearm, but many times they don't want to support me on this. This issue got out of the Senate last year, so I'm pushing again. It didn't pass the House. I'm pushing again. We need to make theft of a handgun a felony in the state of Maryland. And then finally, we're focused on really transparency and accountability in education, and focusing as well on parental rights. So we have legislation to really enact accountability for all the money that's being spent coming up in the Kerwin blueprint. We have legislation to try to get more oversight. We're supporting efforts to restore full boost funding to the state budget that Governor Moore cut, unfortunately, in his budget proposal, to be sure that more kids can get help to attend a private school when they're from failing schools. And unfortunately, Governor Moore's budget cut some of that money out while talking about trying to make sure everybody can. We don't want to leave anybody behind. That's actually a great example of a way that somebody would be left behind. So we're trying to get that restored in the budget. And then finally, my legislation, Senate Bill 566, which would put fundamental parental rights into law, be codified in state law, that the parents have the fundamental right to direct the well-being, upbringing, and the education, health care, well-being, and upbringing of their children. Make sure that is clear in state law so there can never be any question that is what we start with, is that our parents have that fundamental right. So as you can see, those are all introduced this week. A lot of hearings will be coming up. You can see we've been busy. I look forward to talking to you again and giving you more of an update. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great weekend.